this video, we are creating the perfect tomato growing setup for anyone from beginners to experts, using cheap, even free equipment that you probably already have, which requires zero skill to put together and has a built-in drip irrigation system for watering. Hi, I'm Jill. I'm always looking for ways to get people gardening on a budget. If you're always being put off gardening by the seemingly never-ending list of things you need to buy before you even get started, then you've come to the right place. There can never be too many organic gardeners in this world growing flowers and produce while benefiting the environment at the same time. So my aim is to simplify the process, reduce the costs, and prove anyone can do it. So let's get into it. The system I'm about to show you in this video is completely adaptable and can be used directly in the ground. You don't need to do this in a container. It can vary in size, depending on the size of your plants. You can use longer or shorter canes. And whilst this is a great system for tomatoes, it can also be adapted for cucumbers and can even be a support for flowers such as peonies. So the reason I'm doing mine in a container is because I need to be able to move it around the garden, and I need my produce that I'm going to eat, I need to raise that off the ground because, you know, I have my dogs running around here doing whatever dogs do. So let's just recap what we need. We need some bamboo canes. Now, you don't have to rush out and buy bamboo canes. If you have hedge or shrubs or anything like that, you can use twigs and branches for that. I find my pear tree has very nice straight branches and my yew hedge has very nice straight branches, but I didn't have time to adapt those and trim them all down ready for this video. So because I already had bamboo canes from sweet pea teepees that I do, then I decided to just use those, assuming that you already have them. And even if you don't, they are super cheap to buy. If you are going to buy them, you just need to think about one thing really, is the length. So depending on the height of the plant you're growing will depend on the height of the bamboo canes you need. I'm growing a Roma tomato in this pot and it can grow anywhere between 3 and 5 feet. So the bamboo canes that I had for my sweet pea teepees were absolutely perfect size for that. You also need string, and I decided to use the cheaper string than I used for my sweet pea teepee because I will need to take these apart and do them again at the end of the season. They're not going to be semi-permanent structures. And I also didn't need them to look as beautiful as the sweet peas. Plus the rope I used on my sweet pea teepees was much thicker and it was just much more clumsy to handle, and I just didn't want that for this tomato cage that I'm making. Then all you need is something to cut the string, whether that be a knife or some scissors, and I used a 2-litre water bottle for my drip irrigation system. I have a whole video on my experiment with drip irrigation in a tomato pot. It was much more successful than I thought, which is why I decided to incorporate it into this video, and I'll link that video in the description below this video, and just have a look and see other related videos that I'll put there in the description for you. So the first thing I did was prepare my container. So I'd already filled that with fresh compost. So then I wanted to plant the drip irrigation and the tomato. And before I plant the bottle, the drip irrigation, I put several holes, small holes, down the length of it, the length that would be facing the actual tomato plant. And then I planted deeply the Roma tomato plant, which I must add looks really stressed because it's needed transplanting for a long time. Once I had all those things in place, I was able to start the tomato cage. Now, unlike my other projects where I use bamboo canes, we're going to use the thin end first. So we're going to wedge the thin end into the pot, or if you're doing it in the ground, you need to wedge them into the ground, which means you need to soften the ground first, otherwise they will snap. And one of the ways I soften the ground, especially if you've got clay and it's been sunny for the last few days, is I just basically pour a watering can on there or two until it's nice and soft again, and then I can drive the stakes into the ground. But particularly in this case, because we are starting the thin side first. And then you just put them slightly, you push one in obviously at 12 o'clock and then one at 6 o'clock. And you're bearing in mind they're at a slight angle. I wouldn't want to guess the angle. I mean, just a slight, almost actually at the same trajectory as the pot widens out from the bottom up. And then you just obviously put one at 3 o'clock, one at 9 o'clock, and then you fill in the gaps between those. Remember the thin end of the bamboo cane first. So your fat end is at the top. All right, so there it is, all ready for the string. And what you do is you basically create circles of string all the way up that the branches and the tomatoes will poke through and be supported by. For each layer of string, you're going to need to measure 3 times the circumference of the height where the string is going to be, because as you can see, the bamboo canes widen out, so each time the string length gets longer and longer. We're starting at the bottom, so we're doing 3 times our bottom rung, and I'll show you why you need 3 times. And as the video progresses, I learnt a little better system for cutting all this and measuring all these bits of string and weaving it through. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you all the whole cage in real time, but I'll just show you this first one in detail and then a couple more fast forwarded, and a couple of little tricks to perfect the system. So you start off with a knot at the first height that you want to go, but don't worry, the first bit is just a bit rough. Then what I do is I loop it round the 12 o'clock bamboo cane, and that just gives me a little bit of something, the rope for the string to grip onto. And then I fling it round the rest, and as you can see, it's all pretty loose at this stage, but then you lift it to the level you want it at, and you sort of gradually increase the tension on the string, because it is going to need to have some tension to support these tomato canes, obviously. Then you tie it where you began at the first knot, obviously. And then once you've done that, you go around again, only this time we're going to make it more secure. So now that we've got the first row in place, we go around and we loop the string around, and we loop it under the original piece of string and then back round the bamboo, and then that holds it in place and it just adds to the extra tension. And so this time we go around all the bamboo canes on the second pass. And just making sure that we're not pulling it too tightly and messing the trajectory of the bamboo canes, etc. Then you tie off, obviously, again where you started, and then you go and do again the same again, and I'm just measuring here 3 times around this second layer of the cage. So let me just show you the easier way to measure that string, because it was getting really clumsy, and an easier way to weave the string around those bamboo canes, because they also kept getting tangled. So I'll show you how I improved my system as I went on. So I realised it was such a tangle, and of course as the higher I went up the cage, the longer the string was becoming. So I wrapped it around. This was just a piece of bark chipping at my feet, and I just wrapped it around like a spool, and then I was able to use it as a kind of weaving instrument, and it just gave me much more control over the string. So that's tip number 1 for improving the process. And then tip number 2 was the measuring. So I was kind of throwing the string around the circumference of the cage, and it was just really hard to measure it that way. So what I did was I just did 1 circumference of the cage, and then obviously I just used that measure to then fold the string 3 more lengths along, and then I had 3 times the length of the circumference. And then I just worked my way all the way up the top. I think I left probably a few centimetres at the top, because I only needed it to be 3 to 5 foot for the lower to mid-size branches and fruits to be supported. And then as you work up, there's some loss of tension as things move about. So I did sort of troubleshoot by adding extra knots in certain areas to add extra tension and just extra support. Where the bamboo is really smooth, the string can kind of slide down. So I would add an extra knot here or there until the whole thing was secure. So it didn't really take me that long at all to finish this project. It's cost me personally nothing. This string I bought from Home Bargains. I don't even think it's £1. The bamboo canes I already had, but as you know, you can buy those for under £5. They're so cheap. And the water bottle was nothing. We had that left over from obviously drinking water. And so you've got drip irrigation there. Now, in my previous experiment with this drip irrigation method, as long as you soak the compost in the morning, say before you leave for work or you're having a day out or something, then you fill up that water bottle. That will drip irrigate your tomato plant for 4 to 6 hours while you're out. So you don't need to worry if you want to go to the beach all day in a heat wave. You don't need to worry that when you come back your tomatoes are going to be absolutely parched. And ditto, as I said, you can use this method for cucumbers, bush cucumbers, or even climbing cucumbers. And it's just fantastic. And as again, as I said, you can stick the bamboo straight into the ground if you are growing in an allotment and you prefer to just grow straight in the ground. It's perfect for that also. Now, let me tell you, if you enjoy growing your own food and your own flowers and you find personal satisfaction in that, there is nothing more satisfying than also using these recyclable, cheap materials that are not made of plastic. They haven't cost you anything. They're not ruining the planet by using them. They're actually biodegradable and they actually look nice. I really like this kind of rustic look. So I think this project is perfect. I think it's just going to get you started. And I just want to prove that you don't always have to rush off to the garden centre and spend an absolute fortune. And of course, that makes you procrastinate, makes you not want to do it. Gardening, in the generations gone by was always a make, do and mend affair. And I think that's what we need to get back to and stop sort of using all these industrial materials that we actually just don't need in our garden or really in our lives at all. Anyway, if you like this video and you found it really helpful, then please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell and share with your friends and visit my website www.jillbretherton.com. I hope you're inspired to grow your own and I'll see you again in my next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.